We are going live to YouTube.
Woo, woo.
And were we doing porn music? I don't remember.
No, we were doing
we did like a different one.
Okay.
This is fine, yeah.
Cop music?
We're doing like
Nah, whatever. This is what we're
90s
doing
hip
this
hop
week.
beat.
Oh, yeah.
I still gotta get a song going. We have to buy something.
Yes, for sure. All right. Oh, yeah, we were doing this. We were doing Mila's song. Yeah. Mila wouldn't mind. She's cool. All right. So, let's see. I just got to connect the chat, and then you guys can take it away.
Cool.
And that won't take long.
I'm excited.
To anyone who might be joining us, just to let you know, we're streaming live to 3 platforms. We're on TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. Wherever you're watching us, you just want to watch on the original page to comment so you can join the conversation. So, do you guys want to fill that in?
I was gonna say if you want to be on the actual video on the screen, comment on YouTube. So
There I am. I wasn't connected to the Wi-Fi for a second.
What it bands and nigga camp for the night. Where you stand is where I stand for the night. As long as it's alright.
do people at your job, I know your job is like super left, do people at your job talk about Thanksgiving?
Not really.
No, yeah. Did you guys get the day off?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
But they say that like there's somebody at my job.
do they call it like Indigenous Morning Day or something at your job? Or do
No,
they,
no. Like they don't even send out like an email. Like it's just a day off. So
Yeah,
just a
yeah.
reminder, you get this day off. But if you like don't celebrate that day, like if for some reason, like I know some people, like there's one person who is Native, I think, at my job, and like decided to like take Friday off instead.
Friday is a better day.
Yeah, which makes sense.
A 3-day weekend.
Yeah.
Let's get it. I don't think they would let me do that at my job.
No.
All right, guys. So we are up. We have the chat is up if anyone wants to join us, and I will mute myself, and you guys take it away.
Cool. Yeah, my job is still like sending out Happy Thanksgiving emails. That's where we are in the
on the spectrum.
on the spectrum. We are full blown. I'm pro America.
America.
How are you?
I am. You know what's funny?
Oh, hold on. Hi, welcome to Therapy Rebranded, where we're consistently inconsistent.
Ding.
Ding.
How am I?
Yeah, how are you doing? You got homework this week from your therapist. Share with the class.
I got homework where I have to spend multiple hours sitting by myself with no interaction tomorrow and feel my feelings because I've been being a little bit of a busybody lately and doing a lot.
So the homework is quite literally just that you can't hang out with other people for a couple hours.
And like kind of like not like talk to people. Like just be in like solitude for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you can watch TV.
That's probably not what she had in mind for me.
So she wants you to have a breakdown.
Yeah. She was like, actually wants me to do like activities. Like if like cleaning, I think is fine. Drawing, like doing something like, she like totally like Brene Brown'd me. I was kind of mad.
What does Brene Browning you mean?
Like not really, but it's like people kind of say that like, do you know what I mean?
It sounds like whatever. I'm not going to say it.
She was like, sit in like your feelings type shit, which is like some real shit. But like the way she said it was just funny as fuck.
Like be courageous enough to feel your feelings.
Exactly. She like hit me with some like corny shit like that. But she was right. And earlier I had mentioned it to Javae and she was like, yeah, I can feel the anxiety like radiating off of you.
I absolutely can feel the anxiety. It's quite uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It feels like, like you're drowning or something. I don't know. Like that's the level of intensity I feel. Like it's
I feel like I'm not like so nervous about it, but I'm just like, it's like anticipatory. Like I'm kind of like ready. Like I'm not even like I want it. I'm just like, okay, like let's get there.
Let's get it over with.
I want to like get to it. Like I want to get through like tomorrow morning so I can like start it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So yeah, this week I said to we hung out a little bit beforehand, and I said, today was a good day, and I feel like this week, emotionally, I've been like kind of like chipper, which doesn't mean good, but like
It doesn't?
it feels better to me, but I also feel like it's because I'm not like doing that alone thing. Like I'm kind of just like,
Yeah, you told me, so you go, I was in a good mood. I've been in a really good mood this week. I had a really good day, even though bad things have been happening this week. And then you told me that your therapist gave you feedback to sit in your body. And I'm just wondering if possibly they're correlated. I don't know how you could be getting like cyber stalked but had a good week. Help me understand.
you know what's so funny?
Help me. The math is
because
not
I know our friendship,
mathing.
because I know our friendships. I actually anticipated this conversation and I still avoided it in my head. Like I actually was like, I know that you're gonna ask me this question, and like I love it. Like I was like, I know she's gonna confront me with this.
No, because I ignore you when you tell me things that are contradictory, and then you bring it up again and again. I think subconsciously you want me to correct you. Because when you were delulu on the couch, I was like, yeah,
Like literally no response. She like waits for me to like come to her. I fucking hate her.
I don't wait. I just am like, I can't engage in this conversation because I'm feeling that you physically don't want to go there, but I can't pretend. So we're just gonna sit together and be uncomfortable. Because I can do that too. That's like a good friend move.
It was.
Yeah,
And
it's
she like did. She like talked about light shit with me too. Which you know what? Like we've talked about this so many times. Like I have to like settle in.
That's why I don't like when we don't hang out before the podcast, because I'm like, you need to settle in. You need to like,
I've been like that since I was a kid. I need like transition times,
yeah.
which is so weird because I'm like looking for like it's like all of a sudden I'm like okay, like I have to like,
Get cozy.
it's like some weird shit. It's some me shit.
So what was your mood this week? Giddy.
It was giddy
Okay.
because I'm focusing on fun stuff, the fun things that I'm doing.
Okay. Like what?
Like, like dating is fun.
Okay. The texts I got for me this week were not fun.
I know because you're
They're
like
got text from another number.
because I was also being fucking stalked.
Yeah.
Like just, like not even like what is that? Not even like tongue in cheek. Like legitimately.
I feel like it's okay though. Sometimes I feel like when
I just want you guys to know that I know her. She's not trying to get me to cry.
I'm not. Please don't.
I'm like, but it's giving.
I'm gonna feel but guilty if you cry in the first 5 minutes. Wait until we're like 20
No,
minutes.
that's not,
in.
it won't be in the first 5 minutes.
Okay.
I'll wait till like 30 minutes in.
Okay. No, but I think if you've been going through the same thing over and over again for months, at some point, you almost are resentful. Like, I'm not going to allow this to ruin my week.
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to allow this to ruin my mood. And I respect that.
My whole body just went.
Because you're like, that's it.
Like I felt like my stomach like unclench.
Yeah.
That was wild.
Yeah, your whole mood shifted.
I like sat back.
No. But I just, I get that too. Like,
Yeah.
it's almost like spiteful.
I feel like I have to do this. I have to have this good week.
Yes.
Like I can't like I'm like I want to be over this certain shit so fucking bad. And so it's like, oh, this shit again. Like, yo, I was like, I have shit planned. Like I have a life that is like going on. Like I don't want to let this shit. And like last night it almost did. Like, bless you.
Excuse me.
Like I was gonna call you. I was actually like out with somebody and like had like a little mini. When I texted you, I was like heading there.
Yeah.
And I was like, you could just like cancel. You could just cancel and you could call her and you could like go over there and like cry and like,
Yeah.
be whatever. And I was like, no, like it's okay. Like no, we're just gonna like go and like see how it goes, even if we like push through.
Yeah.
And it was not a great time.
Of course not.
But I was like, okay, like we just made it to the end and I just have to like get in my car. And then I realized like it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Not that it like wasn't hard, like the feeling of it, but
You rode the wave.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that there's like a middle
That didn't
ground
like answer your question
where you
at
can
all.
tap in.
Yes.
Like, I don't think you have to be sad or upset all the time, but I also think if like something bad is happening and you don't think about it like once a day,
Bro.
you're probably not in your body. Like, you should probably get, like, for me, it's shower time. Like, I feel like I've talked about this before in the podcast, but I'll like meditate I'll put a meditation on of some matronly woman saying kind things, and I just cry.
I love this.
But then when I get out of the shower, I'm done.
yeah.
You know,
just
and
give
obviously you
yourself that time.
can't do that, but I just feel all the time, sometimes it's bigger than that, or sometimes you can't tap into the feeling, but I just feel like it doesn't, just because it's been going on for a long time doesn't mean that it's not still happening for you. And I feel like there comes a certain point when like things happen or relationships end and it feels like we're supposed to move on. Like, okay, everybody's over this. I've been talking about this for a year. I've been talking about this for 6 months. I'm ready to be done. And it's not done.
You have to stop.
It's not done, bro. It's not done. And it's okay if you want to stop talking about it, if you're tired of talking about it, but you can't stop feeling the feelings about it because you're not out yet. What's going on?
I don't know. I'm just having a moment.
It's okay.
Sorry, y'all. I couldn't make it 20 minutes. Fuck.
But, you know, like, it's kind of like when when my dad died, it was like, I wasn't done grieving after a year, but everybody was done hearing about it, or I felt done talking about it. How about that? I felt done being sad about it. I was over it. And I just, like, shoved it down, and it didn't make anything go away.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty easy to do that at like 18 because you're like, woo, go to college party. And it's like socially acceptable to be drunk 3 nights a week and all of these things.
Right now it's not. I have to be like, no, sorry, I was sober all day. Like today, I had nothing to do. And I was like, oh, I could just like do whatever. And I was like, no, you have to be like a person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have to be like a productive human. That's the other thing too, is like when your grief kicks in, it's like, okay, I've been riding this wave on and off for a year. Like, I'm tired of being exhausted at work. Like, I'm tired of being stressed out about this. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's horrible. It's horrible, bro.
I just want everybody to know that this is like a real like friend moment. Like, she's connecting with me as a friend.
Yeah.
And I can't like connect back with you because I'll lose it.
Ask me how I'm doing.
How are you doing?
I am tired. I'm really exhausted, like emotionally. I had my first like shame moment with a client. I'm not going to go into it, but I had my first like, oh, I just want to crawl in a hole and die. Like, I don't want to be a therapist. I don't want to function. I just whatever. And it lasted for like a week. And it was a really frustrating experience because if I'm being totally honest, I thought the client was going to fire me. And I wanted them to fire me. I actually offered them to fire me multiple times, and they wouldn't fire me.
I just went through a similar thing.
And then I wanted the client to be mad at me because I was mad at myself, and they forgave me, and I still couldn't forgive myself. And I was like just spiraling. And when I was talking to any of my colleagues or my coworkers, they were leaning really heavily on like, but you didn't do anything wrong. The mistake wasn't your fault. And it wasn't my fault. It was our organization's fault, but it was my client.
But it doesn't. Yeah.
And I was just like, is this how people get around feeling like true empathy and truly feeling other people's emotions?
Yeah.
Is they just like maneuver mentally? They just like decide to themselves.
They
like,
latch onto the job.
Not the job, but like the idea of like personal accountability. Like, because I didn't do anything wrong,
I shouldn't have empathy for this person.
I don't have to be sad. Like, stop feeling sad. You didn't do it. It was this person over here that did it. Like, we're all just going to be mad at this person. And I'm like, but I'm not really, like, me feeling I did something wrong is like 10% of it. The other 90% of it is like me empathizing and having like this parallel experience with this client and having countertransference, which is like I'm feeling their feelings and vice versa. Like, it's not about my ego that I think I did something wrong. And so it was really frustrating because I just feel like when things are going wrong in my life, majority of the feedback I get does not align with what actually is the problem or like what actually is going on. People tell me the feedback based on themselves. They say the things to me that would make them feel better, and that usually doesn't work for me. Like, everyone just kept being like, but it wasn't your mistake, and that should be enough.
And you're like, that's like so surface level. Like, that doesn't get to what you're talking about. You're like, I know it wasn't my fucking fault. Like, it's not like about fault.
And people were like having a hard time understanding. And I was just,
you needed better supervision. Not you needed better supervision, but you needed like a moment with like a better, like somebody who could like have that real moment with you of like sit in how hard it is to be like a therapist in that moment of like the system isn't working and this client like relationship isn't working, and like
the feedback I was getting was like, well, what else? What could you? There's nothing else you could have done better. And then I was getting a lot of questions around like, you know, where my ethics lie with this, or like, am I questioning my abilities as a therapist?
Oh, that's everybody's first fucking question. Like, no, I'm not. Were you?
No.
Oh, I was gonna say. Like,
no, I was just like,
I was like, please don't be.
Feeling the immense weight that you should feel if you understand the amount of power you have in your relationship with your clients, and when you cause harm, that it means more than just when you cause harm to some random person, because of how invested they are in you, how vulnerable they are with you, and how much they trust you and the programs that they're in. Like, it's not about like, we caused harm and I feel sad, and yes, I'm having a like countertransference. I'm feeling something bigger because of the shame I'm feeling. I shouldn't be feeling shame, but like, just sit in the feeling with me. Like, it's just mind blowing that other therapists can't sit in feelings sometimes.
They couldn't just let you have this moment before like problem solving or fixing or like assuaging like your guilt or whatever the thing was. Not even guilt, but like
shame.
They could
shame.
Right. Letting you sit in your shame. They couldn't like.
And I realized I was like, shame feels different than anything.
Because they'd have to recognize that they have had shameful moments, or that they've ignored having shameful moments.
I really don't feel the same shame. I don't know. I don't necessarily think the shame is about what I did as much as like it was just something that's in me. Like, it felt very childlike how shameful I was feeling also, which was like really vulnerable. I don't think I wanted to go there with my coworkers, which is totally fine. But
this is like torture, like talking around this, and I know you can't say exactly what it is, but can you elaborate? Like, is it that you said something like you don't like the advice you gave? Like, can you give any sort of, I don't know.
I had to mandate report. I had to call CPS.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, cool.
Now I love it.
Okay. So you saying that, like,
didn't give you all the context you needed about why everybody and the
everything.
The feedback I was getting was like,
that's so hard.
I was even getting feedback like,
I'm just
give me a better answer. Like, well, what would have been better? Like, well, what's the alternative to CPS? And I'm like, that's not the point. The point is that is
that you had to be a cog in the system, and it didn't feel fucking good, even if you know you didn't.
And that kid
wrong.
wasn't unsafe.
Right.
That's also the worst, when the kid's not unsafe, and it's just like, I'm working in a group setting, and I have all these other licensed practitioners watching me, and my own license at stake, and I have to make this report, even though I don't feel good about it.
And it doesn't feel ethical.
It's an obligatory. Okay, thank you for. This is awesome.
And so it just felt really, really horrible. And the worst part was I had this really intricate plan of how I was going to disclose it to the family, and somebody else on the team just casually told the family.
And like ruined the whole thing.
All of it.
Like,
all of it.
Smashed it.
And so then I found out that it was ruined after work hours on a Friday, and I was like, still fixing it. So I called them and did the stuff. But it was just, and like I said, and like, I tried to get fired. I tried to do all the things. Like, I could feel myself. I knew it was shame because of how badly I just wanted to run, hide, and back out. Like, I wasn't even interested
but somebody
in.
Like put like a, sorry, something in my eye, but like. Yeah. I would be irate if somebody did that. Like, if my client found out from somebody else other than me, that's like a.
I lost it. I lost. Trust me.
When you said that, I was. I
mean, I'll tell you off camera, but it was very clear to everybody how I felt about it.
That's like how you came for me. Why are you doing that? Because you just ruined the relationship with my client.
And then it was even more of a when it didn't ruin the relationship. And they were like mad at me, and then I explained myself, and they were like, I know you have my best interests at heart. Pretty much. Like, I know. I believe you. Like, I believe your plan. Or whatever. But yeah, it was horrible. It was a horrible experience. And then we've done several sessions, and they want to like continue with me. And I was feeling like physically sick before session because I was having all this shame and like these emotional experiences. And I'm having this moment, and I'm telling myself like, yo, suck it up. They're not even like the relationship has recovered for everybody but you. And then I was doing supervision about it, and my supervisor was basically like, well, you have to protect your own mental health. Like, if you're having this much feelings around it, maybe don't do it anymore.
Girl.
And I was like, I think that's an ethical obligation. And she was like, I don't think it is. So it was just interesting because I said I was going to sit on it, but I just said, I just think I already feel bad because I felt like I caused harm, and I can't imagine the harm I would cause if I discarded them after this experience.
What they're focusing on is that you're having feelings or countertransference or whatever the fuck about clients instead. But the thing is that you are talking about it, which is what is supposed to happen. It's not that you're not supposed to have feelings about clients.
Yeah.
It's that when you start holding it to yourself, that's the fucking problem. Like working in isolation is the problem.
Well, I'm talking to people, and I feel like I'm in the twilight zone because I'm having conversations.
But they're treating you like you're in the twilight zone and like there's something wrong, but you're actually activating as a therapist, like working as a therapist and maneuvering as a therapist in the correct way.
Yeah.
They're not.
I think it's just one of those really just tough, not black and white situations.
Yeah.
And I feel like for me, oh God, this just, it humbled me because I was like, this is why people can't admit when they do things wrong in therapy or that they're not great therapists because of this feeling. The feeling I'm having right now is why people can't have honest conversations about how they give therapy because it's so uncomfortable, so painful.
It's such an intimate relationship, and thinking I've had moments like that where like I feel like I either maybe ruined the relationship or alienated the client in a way that feels like uncomfortable, or like I just am noticing the power imbalance. Like I'm like, they should be calling me on this, or they should have noticed this, or like I'm like gonna bring it up, but I feel bad that like maybe they had to wait for me to bring it. Like there's this, like, and it's not as high stakes as what you're doing by any means, but it's like a damn, like I want to like run that back. Like I wish like that thing didn't happen. So it's a terrible feeling.
It's a horrible feeling. And the family that it happened with like doesn't trust the system, and like the person doesn't trust therapists, and like it was just, I just felt
Like that therapist.
awful.
Yeah.
It's so awful. So that's,
Did you get any consultation that felt good?
so I'm going to call myself out and say that I was going to meet with my black supervisor, the one I get outside of Atlanta, and I ended up like canceling right before I just like pussied out. So no. And then I haven't had therapy because my therapist was sick this week, which was a blessing. We also don't want to go sometimes.
I canceled mine like 2 weeks ago. I feel it.
So, yeah. You had said you wanted to talk about personal growth as a therapist. If you could tell me in like 2 lines over the last 2 years how you've grown as a therapist, what would be like the theme?
In 2 lines?
Okay, a paragraph.
Cruelty. Can I give background for why I thought about this?
Yes.
Okay. So I was literally in session talking to like not even a client. This is going to sound terrible, but like not like a world-changing session, not like a world-changing client. Like it was just a really easy, nice session, whatever. But it occurred to me how like we were just having a conversation and like I was like I just like felt like a therapist. Like I was kind of like, this is but not great. Like I kind of like stopped focusing on what they were saying and I was like, holy shit, I'm a fucking therapist. And I kind of like freaked out. Is it customary to let the therapist contact the client? The only reason that should I just answer this right now?
Wait, was this for me or for Rachel?
Yeah.
For you, right? Because someone contacted the client ahead of you.
Oh.
I'm just wondering if there's like a standard or whatever for that. Because it seems really fucked up. You know what I mean?
So
Backstabbing.
it was a group of us working with this family, and so somebody read my notes and told them it was somebody else in the group.
I used to sell furniture. And when someone would talk to your furniture sale, but like who's not you, like it could fuck up everything, and people would get pissed. That's furniture. I can't even imagine. Yeah.
Hands.
Imagine 5:30 on a Friday, you get a text from the other people in your group going, "We got your back. Don't worry, this mistake's not on you." Stomach drops. What? What? And then it was somebody else who also had contact with this person and saw my note and my plan. And apparently when we had a one-on-one, they said, because I showed up Monday morning at 9, like so combo. Fuming. They're like, it was supposed to be a virtual meeting. Well, I'm here in person, and so are you. So let's meet in person. I'm ready to talk.
I need to see your body language during this.
Yeah. I need to feel the discomfort as we look eye level.
Yes.
But yeah, they said that they had thought that one of the people in the family already knew, which still is an overstep. But what happened was the group said, well, let's decide as a group how to talk to them. And I said, no. And I just
No.
talked to them myself because they wanted to wait. It was Friday night and they wanted to wait till Monday morning to decide as a group. And I was like, that's too long with trauma kids. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want this kid stewing on this all weekend. Mm-hmm. Like, we already screwed up. No. I just never responded to anybody and just did it. So, yeah. Rough.
Wow.
Rough. Anyways.
I want to hear more about it when we get off.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I forgot
what were you talking about? Keke. Oh, personal growth as a therapist. So you were in session, you were vibing, and you're like, this is what it feels to be a therapist?
But the whole day was just like a great therapy day. Like it was like I got to like work my therapy muscle in just the way that I like. I got to stretch just a little bit. People were like eating it up. There were like a couple, like it was just a good therapist day. And I remember being a baby therapist, like right out of grad school, like a baby, like an infant. And like a more like senior therapist who was like my supervisor kind of was talking to me about like finding my authentic voice in therapy and finding my authentic self. Mm-hmm. And at the time I was like, what the fuck? Mm-hmm. I was like, I got it. Like, I know what she's talking about, but I can't even imagine what that would feel like. Like, I felt like I was parroting or copying or kind of like pulling from so many different things. And not that I'm not now still like soaking things up. I'm like still very much like I feel like a sponge, but I definitely feel like I have a certain style or I have certain things that I gravitate towards. Like, I notice myself more in session. I feel more comfortable in session. Like, I don't get nervous as much before sessions. I feel like I could take on different formations of therapy. So it feels, I'm like, oh shit, like,
this is good.
I can just like go to work and not really worry about it. Tell us more about your therapy muscle, you weirdo. Well, no, I think it's like it's like a comfort zone. It's just, I don't feel like an imposter. I don't feel like I'm trying to be a therapist. I'm like, oh, like, and it's not like this every day. Sometimes like, yo, I did not hit that shit out the park. I did not do that well. I like missed the thing. I need to run it back. But sometimes like when I'm really in it, I'm like, oh, like I'm good at this. Or like I'm like,
you're killing it.
Yeah.
I'm going to sound like a full-blown narcissist, but there's never been a time in my life where I was like, yo, I don't know if I'm a good therapist. Like, I literally...
I never thought if... I always knew I was like, I could...
You know the time of therapy where, like, people are like, what am I going to say next? Like, you're the therapist and you're wondering what you're going to say next? That never happened for me.
Really?
I do not think... I literally am, like, locked in. I'm only thinking about what they're saying. I have no idea what I'm going to say next until they stop talking.
I'm like that, but if there's a client that I'm like, that is super like not into therapy, that's hard for me.
And so maybe the difference is that I have a lot to work with because people are in crisis. Mm-hmm. But I genuinely am not. The only time I'm like, ooh, is if I was like I was debating today in therapy whether to call out jealousy. Mm-hmm. I was like debating. I was like, this is jealousy. This is jealousy. Because I didn't think the person could handle it. That's why. And I didn't want to lose them completely. And it's family therapy, right? And so like you have to be very cautious about not feeling like you're taking a side or ostracizing or isolating people. And jealousy comes with judgment. So I was thinking in my head, like, how do I say this without saying jealousy?
I think you have more hoops to go through in your head a little bit. Not in that you're like in your head. I'm not, but there's like I do mostly individual. So like for me, I feel like naming jealousy like isn't like life-threatening, right? But if you name or not like life-threatening, but like it's not going to break a relationship, or if it does, I don't feel there's not as much at stake for me. So I feel like you like there's more mental hurdles for you to jump for to just call out just emotions even like that.
I don't know. I just feel like, maybe because there's more going on, I have to be locked in and I have to be present. But I don't have that, like, oh, what am I going to say right now? What am I going to do right now? Is this the right thing? Was that helpful? Like, I don't feel like that. There are times where, like...
Because you're fucking talented.
I also feel just, like...
It's just naturally who you are.
I just have I get to be present. Yeah, I think I'm just good at being present. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think that's what it is.
Can I ask you guys a side question that you bring up? Okay, well, be quiet. No, like, okay, so coming from stand-up, when you have a great set, your body is on fire afterwards and like it's hard to go to sleep. You know, you go home and whatever. What's your best day as a therapist? Is there anything that sticks out, and how does it feel in your body? Like how, I don't know, how does it feel walking away from that? Obviously, to what extent you can talk about.
I can't think of it like a single session that has felt like that. I have clients, I think, that stick in my head of like, we've done really fucking cool and like good work together, and I felt myself like kind of puff up or grow as a therapist with certain clients, but I can't think about certain sessions.
Can you speak in general, like what happened with that person that made you feel good? Like, like in general.
For me, I think it's built, it's like it's how the more I can settle into being myself as a therapist with the client, I can do better. And I think that has to do more with me as a person than like therapy or as a client. Like the more comfortable I am, like I'm just going to be better. Like that just makes sense. But I think the clients that I really like develop a relationship with, like they are invested in the process. I'm invested in the process. We're just working. Like it feels like
You have a good flow and chemistry.
We have good flow and chemistry, and it's not that it's easier. Like it's actually that I'm working. Like I actually don't want to feel like I'm just like, you're just going along with what I'm doing. Like I want there to be tension, or I want there to be moments of growth, or moments where like I have to like bring things to consult. Like I really want to like dig into stuff. Like I want something meaty, and those are like, and not even in a trauma way, but just somebody who wants to investigate themselves or investigate relationships, or somebody who has trauma and wants to do trauma work. Like,
Yeah.
I like something that has like,
I leave session like feeling high
yes,
sometimes.
yes,
And I feel leave session actually like fully sweating.
yes.
I don't know if that's
Yes.
like a
Yeah.
I sweat. Yeah.
But for me, like those, I mean, I do some things that are really high adrenaline. I mean, like sometimes I'm telling people news that I'm like, somebody's waiting outside of the door with a needle full of Zyprexa, basically, because they're
Whoa.
going to code, right? Like that's what I'm doing. I'm like standing by the door in case they freak out and I have to step out. So I have like a lot of high adrenaline situations, or like where things are turning over. Like I'm like watching, like this is going from like emotional to aggressive. Like I'm like watching that, right? So I'm having things like that. Sometimes when I have sessions where I basically call somebody a bad parent, I have a lot of adrenaline through those sessions.
That's so satisfying.
Because for me, what I do is I like rip the Band-Aid off and then I take care of you. So I'm like, I don't think you're being a great parent right now, basically, rip. But here's all the reasons I think you're struggling to be a parent. I think it's skill set, not how much you love your kid, and let me help you get there.
Ripping and then holding is one of the best feelings. It's like poking. Somebody said it, I maybe to the both of us, I don't know, but like the poke, you like poke, and then I'm like, get to hold you and be warm and be like, but it's okay. Like I can be
Someone
safe.
can be honest and safe. Someone can say something hard and be safe. Someone can say something that doesn't feel good and still care about you. Like that's the reparative experience that you're having when I'm telling you this hard thing, right? And when I have a parent come back and say, and I've had this happen like multiple times. I've had parents come back and be like, I felt like you ran me over with a truck last session, and I cried about it, and I talked to people in my life, and you were right about some of it. I love when they say I'm right about some of it, not all of it, because that's lets me know you're being honest.
Yes.
You were right about some of it, and like I want to work on it. That's like the best feeling.
No one's going to give you everything, right?
Well, some people do give me every, and I'm like, you're a people pleaser.
Yes.
There's no way
You're
that
right.
one
I
conversation
know.
changed your whole view on life. There's no way.
There has to be
Like,
a part of you that tugs.
Yes.
I push back when people do that. I'm like, there's nothing else, or I'll like run it back the next time. And normally people are like, well, I struggled with this. Like they might not tell you were wrong, but they're like, you were stuck on this. But leaving session high is a great feeling.
It is.
I want to go like talk about it. I want to like debrief. I want to like sit with it. And then I feel like my notes are better.
All right, yeah. But,
It must be hard not to be able to like share it, like to kind of share your triumphs to some degree.
You can.
I don't know. You can.
I mean, you can, because it's like that's the benefit of like bonding with coworkers, right? Like that's why Rachel works at a cult, basically, because they're
Literally.
all friends and they all work there. And so like when you're working together, you're doing something called case consult, so you can go into detail and share your triumphs with people, but you're not supposed to just share it with anybody.
No.
So your personal growth as a therapist is just feeling as though
I'm feeling more just settled, like
in yourself.
in myself and what I'm doing. I feel like I have like trajectory and like what I want to do, like whether it's like what we're doing or any, like it just feels like, oh, like like it comes together. Like it feels whatever, like, yeah.
You guys are weirdos, and I like it. But it's just like I would have never guessed the way you answered those. I was 100% like in my head. The only way to answer this question was like, I got this homeless junkie to, now he's a stockbroker or something like that.
No, that would never be like my favorite.
Rachel's thing is like, I like it when I feel good doing it. Like it's so interesting.
And mine is I always felt good.
Right, and you just always felt good.
My personal growth as a therapist is I feel like I have even more psychoeducation to share. I just want to be like a wealth of knowledge to give people. I just feel like people are.
And so you can see people like settle and get filled up when you give them psycho ed. You're like, yo, I'm like feeding you. And it's the most validating thing.
Well, I just feel like people think that life is happening to them, and when they realize that they have some power with information, it changes everything. And like all this information feels so far, so out of reach because of the language being used. And if you can have someone break it down in simple language for you to be like, oh, this is important to me, this actually matters, this could change my life, people will do the research to figure it out themselves. They just have to know it's important. They just have to know why it's important.
Point them in the right direction, and people take the rest.
Speaking of figuring out themselves, you had told me you want to talk about the Keke Palmer, Dr.Drew interview. And the reason why it made me think of figuring it out yourself is because Keke Palmer was sucking in that information. She was so excited to hear everything he had to say. She was so invested. She said she'd been doing therapy since she was 17, and it showed. She knew like the basics. She was very open, and she was very curious, and her questions were thoughtful. I was like, okay.
That is actually like less about the content and more about watching her have this experience. Like you can tell that she is like, she loves this shit.
Yeah.
And she wasn't surprised. Like there were moments where she was surprised.
Yeah.
But she wasn't. It was validating for her.
Can you guys very quickly, for handsome white people or older people, tell who Keke Palmer is really quick?
Keke Palmer is like she's an actress. She's a business kind of up and coming
did she start on Disney?
She started off. She was like Akilah in the Bee. Does anybody know? Like what was that? She was.
Man.
She was a child actress who's grown into an adult. That's her own brand.
Yeah,
but she's a child actress that's around our age,
and she's like a darling.
30.
She's
do
like
we like her?
Yes,
we do like her.
She's like a black darling. Like people rally around her. Like she's never had any drama until recently. And people are kind of like, well, it's because she has a baby daddy now. Like, you have drama when you have a baby daddy.
How do you guys like Dr. Drew as therapist? Holy shit. I think that's interesting.
It was so fucking random. I literally was like, I texted Javae, like, I'm watching an interview with Keke Palmer and Dr. fucking Drew from, like, couples therapy on VH1. Like, I was like, he's not even like what was he on? Teen Mom and, like, all that stuff on MTV.
Loveline.
Yes.
With one of the greatest radio shows of all time.
I have no idea how I feel about him ethically. I'm going to be totally honest. I don't know enough about this expansiveness of what he does to know that, but I know that the interviews I've watched him in, he's very good at truth telling. He's very good at taking really hard concepts and breaking them down into ways that are digestible. He does a very good job of doing that.
I'd never seen him in anything else.
Ethically, anybody who's doing therapy on TV, giving therapy on TV, I have a struggle with it because there's a secondary motivation. So when I watch somebody giving therapy on TV, whether it's like this,
or what's
the black
Orna,
girl?
or what's her name?
Not Orna. Orna. I actually don't. I'm not talking about Orna. Orna's different. Orna. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Orna.
The black woman? Oh, the girl who like critiques people's.
No. Ifan, save, fix my life.
Ayanna Vincent.
Fix my life. Dr. Drew, all of those things. So these like weekends where these do these intensive weekends or they do these 1 week long therapies, the reason why that I can't respect it and call it therapy isn't because the people don't know what they're talking about. They absolutely know what they're talking about. And they're saying things that are meaningful and intelligent. When I hear them, I know that they understand therapy. So that's not the issue. The issue is that not only are they weaponizing it, but they have, like, there's a benefit to them getting people to have these huge emotional reactions and to process their trauma on TV.
And having aha moments over and over again.
And that's where I have issue because they are, like, maybe in the course of doing actual therapy, it would take you 10 weeks to get to that realization. And they're bringing them to that in a day, which tells you how much skill they have. But also, they're not doing that because they think that person is ready to process their trauma or because they are ready to heal from it. They're not thinking of the damage that's going to come from ripping open 15 wounds at a time and then sending them home after this retreat, right? So that's where I have the issue with it. It's not that you don't have knowledge. It's that the speed at which you're doing this is because you want this interesting thing on TV to happen. And the reason why I have less judgment towards Orna is because they do like over 10 sessions and they cut up like 5-minute pieces from those sessions. And they're like, and so for me,
we're not seeing the whole
so
experience.
for me, it doesn't, and the moments aren't dramatic. And so it doesn't feel like forced moments. It's very quiet progress. It feels like the natural flow of therapy. And oftentimes when I'm watching these shows, it's not the natural flow of therapy and it's being forced. And the reason why the flow of therapy is slow is because we're testing for mental stability before we rip these wounds open. And they're not doing that. And so that's where I'm kind of like, this is ethically off. But Dr. Drew was super intelligent. Like everything I've ever heard him say in an interview is intelligent.
I'm like co-signing everything you're saying and aligning with all of that shit because I watched something afterwards that I'm forgetting that his name is like I'm forgetting his name. He's like a black guy or something. He kind of was doing like he's an LMFT and he was doing therapy interviews for Viceland like years ago and had like different black actors on and like rappers and shit like that and was giving them like 22-minute sessions. And somebody else showed it to me and I was thinking like it's like cool to watch, but I was like, 22 minutes is nuts. These people are having like wildly big reactions and there's no way that they're having like it was purely for like TV. Like it felt so, and they were having like real moments though. Like it was kind of like
cringy.
It was cringy.
And also the reason why I don't have as much judgment for like an Esther Perel is like her format is she does like a 3-hour session. She does an intake before where they answer all these questions. It's very clear that everybody who comes on her podcast has their own individual or couples therapist that they've already been working with. They're not new to therapy work. And she's doing like a 3-hour intensive and cutting like 45 minutes. So again, you're getting like the natural flow of therapy and they're having very interesting conversation and she's inserting her opinion. And so it's throughout the podcast. So it's not, and it's the forced
she's
flow.
saying like I'm not your therapist. Like at almost the end of every single one of those like phone sessions that she has, not on her podcast, but when she does like the ask something like that, when she like does like the little phone conversations, she's like, I'm not your therapist. You should continue this work. Like you should do this. Like, I see a lot of therapists acting like, well, this is like the work that you just did is with me. They're not saying like advocating for more necessarily.
So I don't know. That whole thing was interesting, but so that's how I feel about Dr. Drew. I haven't ever seen him like when I watch like reality TV, I'm like, that's still just reality TV. And I believe that there's intention to help people in their work, but I also think that there's like the first gain is TV and the secondary gain is therapy. And that feels ethically off to me.
I was interested that she like, and also the things that he's saying aren't new to you or I. Like we had a conversation with Raquel Savage that felt like kind of similar to this. Like there were things that not similar to this, but she was saying things about like abuse or about narcissism and things like that that felt like they were like, he's saying what she's saying necessarily. So not that like anybody did it first, but there was new terminology, I think, for things that I like knew was going on, which I liked. And he does break things down really well. I think there were moments where him being a drug and alcohol counselor came in that I feel like were off with my view of kind of clients or wellness or things like that. Like he was very white and black about kind of morality, it felt like, or kind of white and black about people doing well or not. And maybe more of like a medicalized model than I personally kind of practice as. So, yeah.
I don't know. I was just going to say, do you think there's anything too, though, that it is bringing therapy to the masses? Like, is that so? I'm someone who I'm not a big Dr. Drew. Like, I'm sort of what you guys are saying. Like, good stuff, but he also says some kind of weird stuff sometimes. And the TV shit is super, hungry. But I think what he would say is that it's whatever, teaching the masses about it. And I would have to admit that I've learned a lot from watching those shows. Like that you kind of pick up, I guess. And if you think awareness is important, how much does that offset his selfishness?
I honestly think it completely offsets it when I watch him in interviews. Like nothing about him in interviews bothers me at all. And I feel like that's, part of our brand is accessibility, and he's accessible because he's easily digestible. And that's, I think the thing that people don't get is like academics feel like other people are dumber than them, and that's why they're not into it. And it's like
there's a reason why people gravitate towards certain people is because they're accessible, their language is easier to understand, they're not as maybe kind of like reserved, like they're engaging.
He doesn't feel judgmental, I think, is a really good quality of his. Not
only that too, but I feel like he kind of this, I don't know how to articulate it, but so when I work with teens, the main thing is, why should I care about this? And Dr. Drew does a good job of answering the question, why should I care about this? Like when he talks about things, it's like, oh yeah, this is why I should care about it, because he talks about things that feel like a universal experience. Or it feels like a universal experience when he talks about it. Like when he talks about childhood trauma, or when he talks about narcissism, or Rachel was really jazzed about the traumatic reenactments.
Yeah, it was.
But those kind of things, which is basically, do you want to go into traumatic reenactments?
Yeah. Do you want to? You just give it a thing.
So basically, he brought up the term traumatic reenactments on the podcast, and what he said was, we become attracted to people in circumstances that reflect how we were originally traumatized. And so often people with childhood trauma are reenacting their trauma as adults.
And the other word for it that I heard a long time ago from an old therapist of mine is the word imago.
Yeah.
Which is essentially like your child self working out its current issues with like partners or friendships or whatever it is, because you can't do that necessarily. You can't go backwards and do that with your parents.
I've heard him say this I've heard him on another interview talk about this, but this notion that people don't tell you, yes, they tell you like you're going to replay your trauma, like, oh, you might pick, if your dad was an alcoholic, you might pick an alcoholic and all these things. But what people don't tell you is that like, you're also going to be sexually attracted to that. And so it becomes very hard to date because you're attracted to circumstances.
Like in a real way.
In a real way, like physical attraction. And
like it turns you on to be around these certain things, and it feels like...
And it might turn you off and feel uncomfortable to be around other things. And so that's really difficult to deal with. And I just thought it was interesting because you felt like you were being called out. And I was like, what childhood trauma do you think you've reenacted in your adult life? What does it make you think of?
What do you guys mean by reenact? Sorry, just...
So for example, I'll use me, I guess. I have a parent who is...
Wait, hold on. You're going to give me... Reenact is like...
Oh, sorry, yes.
You have something traumatic happen to you in your childhood, and so you create circumstances in your adulthood where you could have that same trauma happen to you. So like a really cliche example.
Happen to you again?
Yes.
Not that you do it, it happens to you.
You're putting yourself in
You're putting yourself in situations where it would happen to you again.
Okay, cool.
So like if your trauma is that like,
you had a parent who was maybe coming or going, or who was like kind of sorry, go ahead. No. I totally.
I'm like, do you want me to explain it? Do you want to?
No, that was a switch for once. Yeah.
If you have a parent who, how do I put this? Maybe your wound as a child is that you felt you were always neglected. So what you're gonna end up doing is you're gonna be attracted to a guy who works 80 hours a week. So,
or like abuse would be the obvious one, right?
Right.
If you got beat as okay. Cool.
Yeah. And what your actually imago child self is trying to do is you're trying to get with another abuser and convince them you're special enough not to be abused, because that's what you wanted to happen with your parents.
Whoa.
Your childhood dream as a child was that you were going to be good enough or special enough that they wouldn't abuse you anymore, or they wouldn't drink alcohol anymore, or they wouldn't do this thing anymore. I'm going to become the perfect enough child that my parent is going to show up for me. And so you're going to pick an adult who can't show up for you, and you're going to try to be so perfect that they show up for you. So an example of this would be, my dad was an alcoholic and he died from his alcoholism. Who did I reenact my trauma with? My first serious partner was somebody who was sober. And what did I do? I tried to get them to stay sober for me, because my dad would not stay sober for me. And then he died, just like my dad died. And that was like a gut punch, right? Because I failed twice.
Oh, hold on. He was sober, you're saying?
Whom?
The boyfriend.
When I met him, yeah.
And then he started drinking? I guess, sorry, I'm just confused because by your story, I would think you found another alcoholic.
No.
Okay.
I found, so my fantasy was for somebody to care enough about me to be sober
that they would
for
change.
Me, that they would change for me, right? And so when I met him, he was newly sober, but sober.
I
And-
see.
And
feels
our
like a
relationship
difference.
was what was keeping him sober.
Is the fact that he was sober felt like a difference to you?
It felt like a different
Yeah.
surface level in
Yeah.
my 20-year-old brain, but
Yeah.
it wasn't different.
Right.
Because everything
Oh.
everything that he had told me indicated that he was not going to be able to stay sober, if I'm going
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah.
20-year-old me didn't understand that because,
You wouldn't know.
well, two things. My dad was an alcoholic, and he had bouts supposedly of trying to not drink. That's just per family members, not from him firsthand. I don't know. But two, like on my mom's side of the family, I had people who like went to treatment or like not supposedly had addiction, and they were successfully sober too. So that was like a real thing to me. But at the same time, everything
Yeah.
he was telling me was saying like,
It's not.
it's a
really
very
gonna
low
happen.
likelihood that he's going to stay sober,
Yeah.
right? And within 6 months of us dating, I was completely in charge of his mental health. So like that was not I was doing and unintentionally I didn't even know it. I truly didn't know it.
No.
But like I
can't see
replayed
it.
that of like I'm going to be special enough
Yeah.
for you to not do drugs and alcohol. Like and I had the high of my life the first couple of years because I was special enough. I was reliving my childhood dream and I was winning. And then when he died, it was like
I lost.
I lost.
Yeah.
I lost. I suck. And I literally felt like I was dying. That's when I went to therapy. That was when I went to therapy. When my dad first died, I went to therapy and I literally outsmarted the therapist. She like told my mom like, not my mom, but she agreed with me and agreed with my mom that I didn't need to be here. And so I was just like, okay. And the reality is maybe I didn't outsmart her. Maybe she was just like, fuck this kid who's not invested. I'm just going to get rid of her and just believe all the things she's saying because I don't
Yeah.
want to talk to her. But in my mind, regardless, it was another adult who either wasn't smart or didn't care.
And either way, they was like not doing you a service. You're like, oh, like I'm not gonna give a fuck if you're not gonna give a fuck.
So that was like my reenactment that I did, and it went horrible. What's a reenactment that you've done?
I think it's hard for me to tell which parent is which in a lot of my reenactments because a lot of this shit has felt so similar for different reasons. Because
It doesn't have to be.
right, it can be kind of a mashup of a lot of different caregivers. But I think that people pleasing is the central thing for a lot of mine, and kind of being a chameleon and kind of molding to make other people or a partner feel comfortable, and stuffing down so much of myself that I don't even know what's kind of real anymore. And I think with both of my parents, probably really early on, I remember having feelings of, I need to like put this part of myself away, or I need to like tuck this away because there's like tumult or there's sadness in the house or there's something going on.
But what was going to happen if you tucked this away? Like, what was the
Right.
end game you were trying to get to? Do you know?
Me feeling comfortable. Like it didn't feel comfortable that everybody else was so kind of like chaotic. And in order to kind of, and he kind of talks about this in here, and this is the part that resonated with me, is kind of not being, as a kid, you have to do so much to regulate yourself because your parents are not doing kind of the parent job and kind of regulating with you or tending to you when you're sad or when you're upset, or if you have hard feelings about them, they're like, that's not okay.
Right.
And so you learn to take care of yourself in different ways. And I think now as an adult, in adult relationships, when people have hard feelings towards me or in general, I have to do a lot to soothe myself instead of just like coming up to them. And I don't even know if I'm explaining this in the right way.
So is your traumatic reenactment that you pick other people who don't take care of you and force you to take care of yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stop fucking with my head. I'm sitting here watching this going like, I don't have fucking trauma. Truly, I'm like, I don't
Your
think I have
traumatic
that.
reenactment is you picked a narc for your wife and you were going to make her be loving and show up for you and give you all the things that you didn't get in childhood. That was your trauma reenactment.
Well, definitely repeated narcissism. Whatever.
That was your
thing.
reenactment. Whatever you didn't get from your mommy, you were like, I'm going to get it here. That was your reenactment.
I'm gonna
and it
try
didn't
to
But
work.
what
out
she
of this
just
person.
said resonates actually with me way more than I'd like it to.
Really?
Way more than I'd like
Which
it to. Because getting approval was very difficult in my, or non-existent.
Yeah.
So the chameleon, like there was a time in my life, and I really don't feel I do it now. Well, no, I'll still fall into it, right? With a different group for sure, in like short-term interactions, but generally not. But whatever.
Yeah.
I did for sure a lot. Like
You did. I'm
People
literally
pleasing.
thinking back to a story that you told me. I'm sorry to keep it on the
That's okay.
on the X track, but I'm thinking back of a story you told me about like buying all this furniture and like trying to get approval and feeling so
Yes.
hurt, right? That you like didn't get it. And so I just we all are trying to subconsciously recreate those experiences. So there's this little thing in your brain called the amygdala, which is like this little nut in your brain, basically, and it's your
Fight or flight, right?
yeah, it's your threat detection center. So you're detecting threats, and that makes a lot of the decisions actually in your life for you because it's scanning to tell you if you should be afraid of something and how to react. And then once it tells you it's a threat, based on your life experience, you make up a story about that threat. That's what you do, right? So like, there's this notion that obviously we all have free will because we get to decide to do with those threats kind of after the moment, but we are all hardwired
You're molded
to
on a
detect
certain
fear
way.
in a certain way. And I think based on how your parents treated your emotions is how you detect other people's emotions and register them as fear or not. And so I think a lot of
Everybody's
people
amygdala is a
please
little different.
Yeah, and I feel like so a lot of people pleasers like detect like in their threat detection system, they detect dissatisfaction or like
it feels dangerous.
displeasure as dangerous. Yeah.
Wow.
And
It feels physically uncomfortable. Whereas for people who have like a regulated or normative experience with conflict or with something, it's like, this is conflict. I'm just going to either.
I'm going to lean in or lean not.
Yeah.
And you know what's so interesting is like, this is like super transparent, but like you're probably my only like people pleaser friend. Maybe I have one more. And my personal experience with people pleasers is it's kind of scary because it's this fear around like how much of what you're saying to me is like because you can't handle me being disappointed versus this is how you actually feel.
Yeah.
It's really hard
Yeah.
to be on the other side of people pleasing.
Well, people pleasing is really manipulative. It's really like people think of it as like, oh, I'm like poor me. And it's not like you're not like some like poor me. I'm not some poor me. Like it's not like I was so damaged and now everybody's so hard on me. It's a real thing that like you can't be that way. I can't be that way in relationships. It doesn't serve me and it's not fair to the other people in relationship with me. And it feels like such a hurdle. Like it's like I know how big of a deal it is in my relationships and I come up against it constantly.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like right like here. It feels like a golf ball in my mind like all the time. So she's right. It doesn't feel safe all the time.
It doesn't because it feels like, are you saying this because you think I can't handle the truth or do you mean it? And when like authenticity and the truth is like everything to you, it feels hard to sit in that. You're like, okay, and then I feel crazy because, with you is another one of the many relationships in my life where somebody is completely different with me than they are with everyone else in their life. And I'm like, is that like a me thing? Do like you feel like I need that, or is it because of how our relationship is? But it's like you are one of many people how the way you show up with me is not reflective of how you show up with other people in your life, and I feel special at times, but then I also feel like that kind of like this questioning thing because what ends up happening is that you show up with me more authentically maybe than you show up with other people, and then other people question it. Like that's the other thing that continues to happen is like I feel like the weird odd friend out all the time with everybody, not just you, because I'm like everybody in my life shows up differently with me than they show up with other people. And then it just becomes this weird dynamic where people literally act like I'm a cult leader. I'm not even kidding.
No, I know.
You're not.
I know. I'm not
like
laughing 'cause
everyone's
I'm like,
like
what the
Javae's
fuck?
getting her, like Javae's getting them on the train. Like she's on like the honesty boundaries train, and like I don't really. Rachel's not really that into that. She's just doing that because Javae just thinks it's that deep, but it's not that deep.
Literally.
Like that's my life experience. Like it's not that deep is what everyone tells me, and I'm like, it is that deep.
It is
Like,
literally
it is that deep.
It's because I think you're a singular person. I'm like you are not in like a way that is bad or is strange. I mean it in like, and not that you're like one of one. There's nobody else there like that who has.
Yeah.
People aren't. This is gonna be people aren't as good.
Okay,
and I don't mean that in a way that you are like a goody two shoes or like a trying to always say or do the right thing. You are yourself, like I perceive you as yourself all the time. And I don't know why, but the rest of us are like not hardwired like to do that thing, I think. And it bumps up against, and we're off. I don't think, and so when I am
We're
with
off.
you,
It's sick. No, okay. So for me personally, though, it's like this thing where people are.
and I
like,
know you don't like the pedestal thing.
Well, I realized actually what it is. People aren't. I'm not on a pedestal. People are mystified by me.
Sure, yeah.
And I realized that the mystified. I'm not even gonna go into it.
Can I do a reading on you?
Go ahead.
Okay. Are you sure that it's just not that this became a part of your identity, that I'm a truth teller and it's how you stood out, and that it's something that you just lean into? Like, I believe it's natural to you for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, like, I've seen that in my life with being the funny one, right? Or you know, we all can step into those roles, I guess. I don't know.
I think it started off as like it was the thing that made me special was that I read other people accurately. So it wasn't that I'm telling you something you don't want to hear, because I feel like when I hear a truth teller, I hear something you don't want to hear. It's more of a like I'm gonna read what you need and I'm gonna give you what you need. Like even as like a small child, like my mom would be like, "You're manipulative," because I was able to read other people in a way that was more than my age, right? Like every kid's manipulative, I was just better at it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so like, but it's more about like, I'm at the point now where I don't think it's cool anymore to tell the truth no matter what. Like that shit's annoying.
It's not.
It's not fucking cool. Right. It's annoying and it's rude and nobody asked you. And I mean that with my whole fucking heart and chest. I tell a lot more truth on this podcast than I do in person. Trust me.
Yeah.
But I think like I start to feel unsafe if me in an intimate one-on-one setting, we can't tell the truth together. And my mom called me actually, and she was telling me about some of her own personal work that she's been doing, which is basically that she realized that some of her trauma is that she needs to convince other people to see the world the way that she sees it to feel safe. Or see something the way she sees it to feel safe. And I think that's very similar to me, is like, I don't need you to see it how I see it, but I need to hear how you actually feel about it. And I don't know why I have this false notion that if I hear the truth, I'm going to be able to handle it better when it happens. But that's just kind of where I'm coming from. The other thing with the like, people are so mystified by me is like, I don't know why, because I swear me and my mom are good. I love my mom to death, but like I pick friends who have, I think, like kind of really tough relationships with their parents. I don't know why. And so like the people in their lives or their friends or the people they pick are like mystified by me. And now that I've stepped out of needing that to feel special and just seeing what it is, I'm like, are you mystified? Am I this special? Or like, is it just hard for you to imagine that you could be honest and set boundaries and like not come when you don't want to be here and like leave when you don't want to be here? Because those are the kinds of things that I'm getting like pushed out of.
That's what I'm saying
isn't even like what I'm sharing. It's my behavior. Like people are like, oh, you don't want to be here. You're not going to come. Oh, you feel this way. You're not going to do this. Like when my best friend's mom thinks I like brainwashed her, I'm not even kidding. Because like she sets boundaries now that we're friends.
That's exactly the thing that I'm saying is like, it's not, you are great, but it's like, it's not that you're doing anything extraordinary. You're doing the normal thing. Everybody else is conditioned to act abnormally, I think.
Got it.
Well,
Like not in like a way to minimize what you're
if
saying.
everybody else is crazy, aren't you the crazy one?
No, because I think that people operate like it's yeah.
is it possible that and I'm really into your psychology right now.
Go ahead, dive in.
But is it possible that you are creating the dynamics within your friends? Because I'm guessing when you meet them, you don't go, "Hey, how's your relationship with your parents?" Right? But if you have an intelligence about certain dynamics that they're not aware of, are you?
I am creating it. That's exactly what's happening. You're calling it out, Gabe. That's exactly what's happening.
Okay.
As they're telling me things that I'm being like, actually, to be totally honest, this is what I do. Somebody tells me that they're being mistreated, and I go, and they're like, I don't know what to do. And I go, set a boundary and see what happens. And 99% of the time, they set the boundary, and that person flips the fuck out. And now it's not about me and what I said. Now it's about you. But all that person wants to think about is that you weren't setting this boundary before you were Javae's friend.
Yeah.
And the boundary is never big. It's never big. Like with my other best friend, the reason why her mom really hates me is because she used to kick her out. And my family was like, well, you can come live with us. I bet you do hate her. I bet you do hate me, right? Because we took her in. You can't come to Christmas. Well, you can come to our Christmas. You left your abusive boyfriend. You can't move in because you weren't respectful last time I saw you. Well, we're super happy you left your abusive boyfriend. You can move into my mom's basement. We'll share a bed. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? That's just being a good person. That's not like,
You're just showing up.
I'm just showing up. I'm sorry. It's not that big a deal to let your friend live with you for a month. It's not.
It's not.
It's not. It's great.
I would love it.
Yeah. So it's just like, yes, I am putting a spotlight on it. And I feel super nervous because I don't want to highlight too many relationships in people's lives because I don't want people to feel like they did a 180 because they were my friend also. So the other thing that Dr. Drew talked about before we move on to the last topic and be really quick about it. Because we're always like, I want to set a timer, like 10 minutes each topic.
I know, but we can't
It's my fault. It's my fault.
No, it isn't. It's my fault too because I'm not watching because we have multiple topics we want to get through and we just like riffed. But is the like, Dr. Drew was basically talking about this notion that like a lot of us who get with people who have trauma or people who are abusive or all of these things, like, it's because we have poor boundaries. Like we ourselves are feeling some kind of pain towards them or we are taking on their pain or we're taking on their mental health, we're taking on their recovery. And I just think about that because I think most of us do that. I think about it a lot with dating. When somebody says, yo, my boyfriend was X, Y, and Z to me, but he finally told me the reason is because he hates his mom. And now all of a sudden it's like he gets 6 more months to abuse you because he told you he hated his mom. And I just am like, I've been in that camp before, but I just don't understand.
I know the reason so I can stay longer.
We've both been in that camp.
Yes. Bitch, for years. Still.
And I don't, something about hearing the reason makes you feel special, but it also makes you feel like they want to change.
Because we are conditioned to think that is vulnerability. That's not vulnerability because it wasn't fucking hard for them to tell you. They tell everybody that.
Well, we don't know that.
Oh, you nailed one. That's a great one.
They do, because you are the person who actually taught me or like told me about this.
I did tell you about this trauma dumping. This is the benefit of being the weirdo in high school who was friends with all the men, but not sleeping with them.
But not specifically trauma dumping. It's how men use the jump to like from their mom to different girlfriends to meet their emotional needs. It is trauma dumping.
Yeah.
But it's the specific thing of like this dynamic between men not formulating their own emotional opinions or feelings or like wherewithal. They like use the women in their lives.
You're slightly off, but you're kind of right.
Correct me.
Okay, the correction is they outsource all their executive functioning to their girlfriends. That's what not their feelings. Their feelings are their own. They feel their feels and they blame it on their girlfriend. So let's just be clear.
Right.
But they outsource their executive functioning. So like planning their day, goal setting, getting tasks done, doing doctor's appointments, doing all of these things. I often see men who never who never developed the skills to do those things. Yes, emotional things, but I think what I've described more than the emotional piece is like
the executive piece.
The executive piece, and they're roping you in with emotions to take care of them. They're like, I'm going to tell you my trauma story. Yes, you're going to coddle me and take care of me, but more importantly, help me function every day. Help me get through the day. When I'm frustrated, I'm going to offload my feelings on you. When I need mental health help, you're going to find my therapist. When I have something wrong with me, you're going to bring me to the doctor. Like it's that like the last sense of responsibility truly falls on you as my partner. And I don't have the skills to do that because my mom was a bitch. Like literally, and that's the second part.
No.
Oh my God!
And so what? And so it's that, and like you don't know how many 16 to 14-year-old boys that we get in the ER that are sober or not trying to kill themselves because of some fucking girlfriend, and how I have to sit these moms down and tell them to their face, this is a really bad scenario, and here's why. Here's all the skills that they're not learning because they're offsetting them on their girlfriend. I this is a regular occurrence that teenage boys tell me that they only go to school because their girlfriend tells them to, that they only turn in their homework because their girlfriend tells them to, that they're taking their meds because their girlfriend told them to. And yes, this is because they want to have sex with their girlfriend because they're 16. But all of these skill sets and this like personal responsibility they should be developing at this time, they're offloading it to some girl. And then when this girlfriend and them don't work out, they're going to have to keep ping-ponging to girlfriends. I mean, there might be a period of time in college where they're just around other boys and they don't do doctor's appointments and they don't need help with anything because they're just doing school. But when they are heading towards real life, they get back with a girlfriend and they have them do those things.
So are you saying it's weird that I went to college and didn't know how to do laundry or make ramen noodles?
Yes.
Okay. How do you avoid parenting your children into that corner?
You make your boys do tasks to take care of themselves. Like
Actively.
And it's things that don't have to be sickening. Like
like age appropriate, developmentally appropriate.
And you're
tasks.
in middle school when you're 13 and 14, you can cook one meal a week for the family.
Oh, yeah.
You can start to do your own laundry.
You're just
Like it's
introducing them
teaching
to
people
things.
how to do tasks.
They don't have to actually do the task all the time. You're just like you're just like helping them. Like, this is a thing you can do in your life. I'm still gonna care for you, but you will know how to do this by the time you like leave the house or like do this thing. Like, you will understand different parts of like having a household.
It's problem solving skills too. It's frustration tolerance. I want you to cook the meal and fuck it up, and I want us to all eat it and you to get through that. Like, there's also just the parts of like life, right, that are just you have to pretend
Real life consequences with like borders to them.
Yes.
Like introducing your sons, maybe specifically, but all kids to like hard emotional things. Like exactly what you said.
Yes.
Sitting through discomfort is like a huge one.
Yes. All right. The last like 10 minutes, then let's just try to hop off. But is like getting addicted to stress hormones. We've been wanting to talk about this for like the last 2 podcasts. We just
like
haven't
months, I feel
gotten to it. And basically what it is that like there are people and a lot of us that function a lot better when we're under stress. And what I mean by a lot better is we feel better. We feel like ourselves when we're under stress. It's not better for you, but it feels better. And what ends up happening is one of 2 things happen. You either had such a stressful childhood that stress becomes the norm for you, and that's how much stress you're creating in your adulthood, or you get really addicted to stress hormones. So when you're having stress, you release cortisol, right? Like you release the stress hormone that's not good for you. It like is shutting down your digestive system. It's ramping everything else. But at the same time, you're releasing dopamine, which is like the yes. If you had to like think of that, that's dopamine. It's like the hit of like, this feels great. I did it. It's not like the regular like
It's like the winning shit.
It's not like
I'm
a slow
winner.
high or anything. It's I'm a winner. I did this. I'm the best.
It's coming out of session like doing like I killed this shit.
Yes. You're releasing both of those at the same time. And so what ends up happening is like you get dependent on releasing those hormones. And what also happens when you're stressed out is that you don't get to think about uncomfortable feelings because you have things to attend to. You don't just have to sit in your emotions, sit in your bodies, sit in these things. And so it becomes really difficult for people who are addicted to stress because they don't even know it. 1, either it's the normal you've had your whole life, or 2, you're so addicted to these stress hormones that you're like, I feel better when I have a little bit of push and drive and things I need to do. And you don't realize that actually if you felt settled and still in your body, you could be a lot more productive.
Red.
Oh yeah, I was thinking about you honestly with the like not being able to kind of like sit still, because when we talk about like, okay, what does stress addiction look like? If I like pulled up a list, I was like doing some research online, looking it up, and some different.
How many things am I clicking off right now?
Well, I'll read something and you can just say check if it's true. Okay.
Okay, I'll give you the honest list when we're on.
Okay. No, honest now. Just say check. You don't have to go into it.
Okay, I will. I'll be honest.
Engaging in behaviors that may be harmful or have unwanted consequences.
Check.
Okay. Seeking out activities or putting yourself in situations that are stressful.
Check.
Feeling bored unless you're under stress. No. Enjoying drama and seeking it out. No. Continuing to put yourself in stressful situations despite experiencing physical symptoms.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Here are some other things you might notice. This one really made me think of you.
Head ass.
Saying yes when you'd wish you'd said no.
All the time. Constantly.
Lacking self-care and time spent
Yes.
keeping yourself well.
Yes.
Experiencing physical pain like back or neck pain.
Jesus Christ.
Being unable
Wait,
to...
pause. Wait. Cuts to me literally losing movement in my legs because of my back pain this summer.
Yes. Being unable to remember the last time you weren't stressed. Constantly checking your phone. So I think like one of the things is like, okay, well, how do I know I'm addicted to stress? And this is what I'll tell you, can be a foolproof test anybody can do at home. Foolproof test. Just try to do nothing for a couple hours and see what happens. And you know what's so funny is because I had come up with that before you told me that you didn't want to sit alone for a couple hours. I'm like, look who's addicted to stress.
My therapist literally was like, this is the theme of the week. And like, that's why I'll never leave her.
Why do you think you're addicted to stress? What about you is giving that?
My parents. My parents are stressful.
They are stressful.
My family's stressful. I grew up in stress. I'm used to having to manage stress. I remember describing, I've said this to you, I've described myself as I feel good when other people in the room feel good.
Yeah.
That was literally my mantra maybe until I was 25, maybe 26.
Yeah.
And I felt that shit. And when I clicked for me, what that was, it's like a lifetime of unlearning not to be stressed. I can actually choose to not engage with things. And that was never an option.
You still don't do it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I think for you, I don't know if this is real or not, but I think in your stress loop, if I had to think of what your addicted self is, if I was thinking about it really as addiction, what is the mental schema? What are you telling yourself that's replaying over and over again? I think you're telling yourself, if I don't solve this in the moment, it's going to get worse.
It's that something's going to come out of the blue and surprise me.
You're hyper attentive to that but even when bad things are happening, right? Something bad will be happening and I'll be like, this has nothing to do with you. This is totally external. Let it play out. And you're afraid to let it play out. Mm-hmm. You're afraid without intervention what it's going to look like.
I think because as a kid, I had a step parent who used to tell me, just don't interact with that. Just let it play out. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, but I had parents who would come out of the blue, irate at me.
Yeah.
Who would, both of them, who would just be, mad. And not, I wouldn't know what it was about. I wouldn't know what I did wrong. I'd be like, what the fuck? And so now I think I'm trying to always manage where people are at with me because I don't want to be surprised. I'm so afraid that people are lying to me all the time. I would think that I was good with them and that I'm not. And so I have this fear that people are, not being real with me all the time. So I'm like, are you okay? Are we good? How are we? And now I'm trying to not do that and not check in because I did a lifetime of are you okays to people? And I'm like, it's hard. And I think I'm actually missing things in the recalibrating.
I think anybody who's not in their body is missing things.
Yeah.
I think that's hard for you because what you want is to see everything. And because you're so worried about it, you can't see everything. It's the mind fuck of it all, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're wanting. I think with me personally, where the addiction to stress hormones came in is that I would I got into this relationship currently that is not abusive and it's not as stressful as other relationships. And I find myself after I've ended, I have this relationship that's romantic, that's not as stressful, and then I have friendships that are less stressful. And I find myself, when I have more bandwidth, less stress in my friendships or less stress in my romantic relationships, looking for ways I can give more to others or do more or be more involved or check in or what am I not doing right? And that feels where I'm addicted to stress hormones because it's why are you looking for the ways in which you're failing right now because you feel you're coasting? Just coast. Just be good. Just be in this space that feels
But what happens
wholesome.
when I coast is I miss things and then people come out of left field with things that I'm doing wrong.
But when you're not coasting, that happens too. There's no difference between that happening. If you really think about it, there's no difference.
That's true. I'm just being hyper vigilant or not.
Right.
Right.
And I also feel
I'm like quieting my energy down because in my head I'm having like a moment about something that's going on, and this like gave me clarity, and so I'm like trying not to focus on that.
Is this something we can talk about or no?
Not on here.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. The screen is off, Gabe, so we don't know if you sent us anything or said anything, but we hope not.
And nothing's on here on TikTok.
No, it's fine.
All right, we're all good? All right.
We're all good.
See you soon.
See you soon.
I was nice alone.
My ears throbbing.
Be shy. You know, you talk to me, and it made me feel really happy, actually. I guess I really like your company.
You want